What is up, you spooky bitches? We are back and we have another episode of the Hello Sidney podcast here, a podcast for horror lovers where we discuss any and all things horror. And it's me, your girl, Sidney. What is up? Happy Friday. How's everybody been? Are you having a good week? What have you been watching? What have you been up to? Once again, just like on Wednesday, I'm actually filming this episode on the same day that I filmed Wednesday's episode. So I still have not watched any new movies. I have just been trucking along, just moving things and watching movies for the pod. So I don't have anything new and exciting. But I mean, I'm still having a hell of a time watching the movies for this month. Like, I have to give myself credit here. I picked a pretty damn good lineup, if I do say so myself. Like, it's a wild, wild lineup of movies. And today is no different because today we are talking about the French film High Tension from 2003. This movie is also known as Switchblade Romance. That was, I think, the original title of it until it was changed to High Tension. And this movie is, again, it was filmed in France and it was directed by Alexander Aja. And he's done quite a bit of horror movies. He did Mirrors, which is a classic 2000s core movie. He did Piranha 3D, which is so silly and outrageous. He did The Hills Have Eyes. He did Crawl. And I think one of his more recent ones was that movie Never Let Go that came out last year with Halle Berry. So he has kind of, even though it's all in the horror realm, and he's done things outside of horror as well, but from the movies that he's done within the horror realm, he's got quite a range because I don't feel like any of them are necessarily like each other. And this movie that we're talking about today, High Tension, I feel like is so different from all of those movies that I just mentioned. And High Tension is kind of the movie that put him on the map. So honestly, without this movie, I don't really know if he would have ended up making all of these other films that are honestly kind of iconic. Like The Hills Have Eyes is, I think, in my opinion, I think it's a very good remake. I love Mirrors. Again, such a classic 2000s core movie. So to know that he got his start in this movie, and it is just so drastically different than I think anything else he's done, it's kind of shocking. But High Tension, again, came out in 2003. It's about an hour and 29 minutes long, so it's a quick watch. And it has a 6.7 on IMDb and a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. And the same thing just happened if you guys listen to my episode on Wednesday about The Uninvited, because I find it so strange sometimes when it's such a drastic difference, because 6.7 on IMDb, I feel like is pretty damn good for a horror movie, whereas 40% is not so great. That's considered rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's interesting to see how critics on different platforms rate things so differently. This movie, my feelings about this movie have changed over time, and I'll explain that at the end. So let's jump into the movie itself. So High Tension opens up, and this movie is completely in French. I watched this weird version of it on Tubi where it was like half dubbed, half not, which I've never seen that before. Usually with movies that are in different languages, I prefer to watch the version with subtitles because I feel like when it's dubbed, it kind of just sounds silly at times. But this was like a weird version that is half and half. And I can't remember every other time I've watched this movie if that was the case, but it was half and half. But regardless, it opens up with this woman, and we hear this woman's voice saying, "I won't let anyone come between us anymore." And we see that we're in southern France, and we see this woman sitting on a bed. Her feet are hanging off of the bed, and she's repeating this phrase, "I won't let anyone come between us anymore." And she keeps repeating it. And we get glimpses of her, and we see that she's like all cut up, and we get a glimpse of her back, and we see that she has really short hair and she's looking down. Like, she looks disheveled as fuck. Like, she looks unwell. And we then get a flash to a woman from behind, and she has the same haircut as this woman sitting in this hospital bed, seemingly. And this woman is now limping through the woods, and she's like dirty and she's bloody, and we get the title card. And when we come back, we see this truck driving down the road. Or a car driving down the road. And the woman that was just limping in the woods is holding her side. She has blood coming out of this wound. So it seems like she's been stabbed. And eventually she runs out into the road, and the car slams on its brakes. And this woman runs up to this car and starts banging on the window, screaming desperately for help. And we cut from this scene and we cut to Marie, who's going to be our main character. And she is in the back seat of a car, and she wakes up. So this was a dream. And she's in the car with her friend Alex, and And Alex tells her, we're almost at my parents' house. And Marie starts to tell her about this weird dream that she just had. She's like, I was running barefoot through the woods and this guy was chasing me. And Alex is like, well, who was the guy? And Marie is like, that's the weird thing. It was me. Like, I was running from myself. So they kind of just like laugh it off. And Alex is like, remember, like, we're coming here to study, not to party. Like, we really got to like buckle down and study. So that's the point of them going to Alex's parents' place, which is this remote cabin in the middle of the woods. Of course it is. So we cut to this remote little house in the middle of the woods, and we see that it's in the middle of a field, and there's this woman outside taking laundry off the line, and this woman is going to be Alex's mom, and we see this little boy whose name is Tom, and again, this is Alex's brother. Like, there's a big age gap here. Like, he's got to be like, I don't know, fucking like 7 or some shit. He's little. Now, as they're outside, what they don't see, but the audience sees, because the camera pans, and we see that there is this truck sitting on the property. And it's sitting like there's a cornfield on the property, so it's kind of hidden by that. And we zoom in on this truck and we see this guy in there. And from the immediate look that we get, it appears that the guy's getting head in his car, which, like, okay, go off, sis, like, good for you. But then it gets really disturbing when we zoom in more and suddenly he picks up this head and it's a decapitated head. It is the decapitated head of a woman. And once he's done, he simply just throws the thing out the window and drives away. So that's the kind of movie we're getting ourselves into here. So we cut back to Marie and Alex. They're in the car. Marie is driving now, and there is like this love song playing. And Marie looks at Alex, who seems to be asleep, and she's kind of looking at her in like this loving way. So we're kind of getting a hint already that Marie might have some feelings for Alex here. And Alex wakes up. It's dark out now, so they've been driving for some time, and they're driving down this dirt road through the cornfield, and this is how they get to the house. And Alex tells Marie to stop. She's like, I think I saw somebody in the cornfield, like, stop the car. So Marie stops the car, and Alex gets out and goes into the cornfield, and Marie waits in the car for a second, and then when Alex doesn't immediately come back, she goes out and follows her, which, like, I'm not following anybody into a fucking cornfield, but okay, in the dark, by, but this tense music is playing because you feel like somebody's going to pop out and grab one of them or something. And Marie is running around looking for Alex. She can't find her, but then suddenly she hears the car start and she runs back into the street, and Alex was just playing a trick on her. Alex got back in the car and she starts to drive away. So the two of them laugh, they get back in the car, and eventually they pull up to Alex's parents' house, and they start talking about how this really is in the middle of nowhere. And Alex is like, yeah, I told you, nothing exciting happens here. Like, we're literally in the middle of nothing. And they go in. Alex greets her dad and her little brother and their dog, and they go upstairs, and Alex shows Marie to her room, which is going to be like the upstairs. So you go, like, the main living area is on the first floor, and then the second floor is the bedrooms, and then there's like a third level that is just a guest bedroom. So that's where Marie is going to be staying. And Marie goes upstairs to the guest room, and Alex goes to greet her mom. Marie's looking around the guest room when suddenly Alex comes up and startles her. And we cut to downstairs. They eventually get down there, and Alex is talking to Marie about this guy that she likes, but this guy has a girlfriend. And she basically is like, well, I only like guys with girlfriends because if they don't have a girlfriend, like, what's wrong with them? Alex, do better, my girl. Like, get your shit together. What the fuck? Who says that? But she kind of then changes the topic, and she says to Marie, like, do you like anybody? And Marie claps back and is like, no, I'm not a slut like you. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, right off the rip, like, are you both okay? Like, are you actually even friends? Because, like, there's a difference between, like, friend banter, like, oh, you're a hoe, ha ha ha. Like, I just sent 2 of my friends, like, this Whores Anonymous TikTok the other day. Like, hey, we were looking for you in Whores Anonymous. But, like, this seemed aggressive. But whatever. I guess this is just how they fucking banter. But they end up talking about their study plan for the next day because, again, the whole reason that they're here is so that they can study. They got something to study for. And Marie tells Alex, like, I'm glad that I'm finally getting to meet your family. And Alex agrees, and they both go up to bed and go their separate ways. But before Marie goes upstairs, she goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and she walks off into the yard, and she sits on this, like, rickety old swing set that is in the yard. And as she's sitting on it, she looks up in the window, and she sees Alex in the shower, and the window is just open and she's just butt ass naked, just directly in the window, which, like, I guess you live in the middle of nowhere. Who gives a fuck, right? So Marie is watching her shower naked through this window, and we focus on her for a minute. And when we cut back to the swing, we see that Marie is gone, and she ends up going inside. She goes upstairs and she passes the dog, which is a big Saint Bernard that just is laying there. And she gets in bed and she starts listening to music, and she starts to get really into it. And she unbuttons her pants and she starts to touch herself. And it's obviously not like explicitly said, but it's assumed that she's doing this because she just saw Alex naked and she obviously has a thing for her friend. So she's doing her thing. And outside, we see this truck from earlier with that fucking weird dude pull up, and it just sits outside the house. And we see that Alex is asleep, the mom and dad are asleep, little Tom is asleep, and Marie is still doing her thing upstairs with headphones in, listening to music as the truck gets closer. And now the dog senses something, and the dog starts barking, and they have like birds in a cage that start squawking. And Marie hears this happening. So she gets herself together and she looks out the window and she sees nothing because the truck has gone too far. But suddenly she hears the doorbell, and the doorbell wakes up Alex's dad, and he goes downstairs to answer. And Marie watches out the window as this is happening so she can see the front door, and she can see this man, and this man pulls out this like hook type weapon as the dad goes to answer the door. And he just bashes the dad over the head with this thing, which causes the dad to fall to the ground. He's bleeding immediately and he starts screaming. And this guy just enters the house. The dog runs up to him and tries to attack him, but we don't actually see the dog be killed. But I'm so sorry. The dog does get killed by this guy, and we just see him like pick up the dog, and suddenly the dog drops to the ground and it's dead. Now the dad is still alive. He's bleeding profusely and he struggles to start climbing the stairs, and the man follows him and gets over him, and the dad is not fully up. He's kind of on his hands and knees, and the killer, he doesn't have a name, like I'm just going to refer to him as the killer gets over the dad, and he puts his boot on his head and like rams his head in between the posts of the railing on the stairs. So now the dad's head is kind of stuck through the railing. And as he's stuck there, the killer, goes back down the stairs and he takes this dresser or this cabinet that is near the door. And at this point upstairs, we see that the mom has woken up because she's heard the commotion downstairs. And downstairs, the killer takes this dresser and he just rams it directly at the dad's head and just smashes the fuck out of him and kills him. Like his head like explodes. So eventually the mom, again hearing the commotion, comes out of her room, and little Tom comes out of his room too, and she makes him go back inside his room. And we see Marie starting to come down the stairs from her guest room. And now the mother goes downstairs and she finds her husband's body because he's laid out right there on the stairs. And she looks up and she sees the man. She sees the killer, and he proceeds to pull out a razor blade. And now Marie, who hasn't fully made it down the second set of stairs, she hears screaming, and she ends up closing herself in the guest room as she hears the mom screaming for help. So in her room, Marie looks for anything she can, and she sees this telephone that's not connected to anything. So she grabs it and she's looking for somewhere where she can plug it in, and she's like trying to move the dresser, but it's too heavy, so she can't move it. And now as she's doing this, we see the man downstairs, and he opens the door to the upstairs to where her room is, and he starts to approach. He starts to come up the stairs. And now Marie puts the phone back and she starts to pack her shit, and she's like hiding everything to make it look like nobody's been up here. She cleans the sink so that it doesn't look wet. So again, it doesn't look like anybody's up here, and she looks for a place to hide. And the way she's looking, like it seems like she's going to hide in the shower. So eventually we see this man enter the room, and he's just like lurking around like a fucking weirdo. And we notice that he has this ring on it with a letter P. And honestly, I didn't even really need to specify that because we actually never figure out what that's about. But they like make it a point to focus on this ring with the letter P on it. But this guy ends up going into the bathroom, and he slowly approaches the shower curtain, and you're like, oh fuck, is he gonna find her? But he opens it and she's not in there. So she's hidden elsewhere. And he ends up going back into the bedroom, and he lifts up the mattress, but he does it from the bottom, and he sees nobody under there. So he puts it back down, but we pan under the bed, and we see that Marie is indeed under the bed, but she is pulled back towards the other end that he didn't lift the mattress up over, so we didn't see her. So he leaves the room thinking that nobody's in there. We cut to Alex and we see that she's still asleep, which like at first you're like, how the fuck are you sleeping through all of this? But then we notice that she has earplugs in. So like, okay, I guess that's how. Those are some really good fucking earplugs. But we see this bloody hand come into frame and start to touch her hair while she's asleep. So of course we know this is the man. And suddenly he takes the razor and puts it to her face. And she wakes up to see this man standing over her. And he just like puts his finger to his lips and just tells her, shh. Which like, what if, like, that's my worst fucking nightmare. Like, you are so vulnerable when you're asleep. Imagine waking up to that shit. No. So we cut back to Marie, who is still hiding under the bed, and she starts to hear screams. So she goes to that phone again, and she tries to move the dresser, and she finally does move it a little bit, but it's all for nothing because she sees that behind it, it is not a phone connection thing. It's just a fucking TV plug. So Marie starts to go downstairs and she can hear like grunts and she can hear screams and all these various noises. And she ends up running into the parents' bedroom, which is empty now. And she sees like the hook for a phone, but the phone is not on the hook. And she hears somebody coming. So she runs to the closet and hides inside of there. And the closet is kind of slatted so she can see through it. And through the slats, she watches as Alex's mom crawls in bloodied, like fucked up. And she grabs the phone from another place. It was like on the vanity and Marie didn't see it. And she tries to start calling the police, but the man comes in behind her and the mom is going towards the closet. So she's basically dead looking right at Marie and Marie is looking at her as the man comes up behind her and slits her throat with a razor as Marie watches and she just dies. So the killer leaves the room and Marie comes out of the closet and she looks down at the body and she goes to like touch the mother and suddenly she bursts awake and she's still alive and she struggles and gasps, but a few seconds later she eventually dies. And we see that in the struggle, the man also cut her hand off because Marie looks down and sees the phone lying there. And next to it is the mother's severed hand because she was trying to grab the phone. And Marie picks up the phone and she tries to use it, but it's no use. It's dead. So it was for nothing anyway. And Marie then hears another noise and she looks out and she sees Tom running. So now this motherfucker is going for this little kid. And if you don't like violence against children, this isn't going to be great for you. I'm just going to let you know that right now. But we see Tom running and the killer is walking after him. And now Marie goes into another bedroom where she finds Alex. And Alex is chained up and gagged. So the killer seemingly is going to take her because she's the only one that he hasn't killed and she's all tied up. So she's crying, obviously. She's distraught, and Marie goes and she hugs her and she's trying to get the gag out and the chains off, but it's too tight and it's locked, so she doesn't have the key. And they both then hear Tom calling for his mom, which is so sad. That always breaks my heart in movies. So this poor boy is calling for his mom, and Marie looks out the window to see him running through the yard, and he goes into the cornfield, and the killer chases him, and he goes into his truck and pulls out a shotgun and follows Tom into the corn and shoots him. And we don't necessarily see him shoot him, but we hear the gunshot. And Alex and Marie, well, Marie watches this and Alex hears the shot as well. And she just starts crying. And Marie goes to her and tells her, like, if he wanted to kill you, he would have. And he asks where she can find a phone. And Alex is just inconsolable. Like she's not helpful at all, which like, I don't blame the poor girl. Like her whole family just got fucking massacred and she's tied up. So Marie ends up leaving and she tells her, like, I promise I'll be back, but he can't know anybody else is in the house. Like, as long as he doesn't know I'm here, like, this is good. So Marie starts to run down the stairs as the killer is coming back into the house, and he goes upstairs and Marie manages to get around him and get into the kitchen, and she tries the phone down there, but it doesn't work. And at this point she looks up and sees that the line has been cut. So that's why the phones aren't working. And she starts to hear footsteps above her, like upstairs, and she can hear Alex crying upstairs as well. And we cut to the killer, and he has now picked up Alex and he is carrying her downstairs, and he goes outside and throws her in the back of his truck. And the killer then comes back in the house. Meanwhile, we see Marie has grabbed a knife and she's found these keys somehow. So she has these keys and a knife and she goes outside. So back inside, the killer is still looking around. He's looking at these family photos and he smashes the glass and cuts Alex's face out of this family photo that is there. And Now, Marie runs to the truck and she gets in the back of the truck with Alex, and she's like holding the knife because she hears the guy coming. She hears footsteps and she's getting ready to stab him when he comes around the door. But instead of coming around the door, he simply just closes the door. So now they're both locked in the truck. So the guy gets in the truck and they start to drive away, and the camera pans and we get this overhead shot of Tom's dead body in the cornfield. So he was indeed shot and killed by this guy. And we see all the carnage, like we see the parents dead in the house, and we see all the destruction that this man caused in a very short period of time. And back in the truck, Alex is crying in the back of the car, again, understandably, and Marie tries to like quiet her down and console her. And Alex just lays down and just cries more. And Marie promises her, we're going to make it out of here. Like, we're going to get out of here. And the killer, up in the front seat, the killer takes that picture of Alex's face and he hangs it up on his rear view mirror. And we see that he has a bunch of other pictures of other girls as well. So this is not his first rodeo, which of course we know from the decapitated head in the beginning as well. So we see Marie has this knife and she uses it to pick the lock on the back of the car, like on the door. And she manages to get the door open as the killer is pulling into a gas station that's completely empty, by the way, because again, they're in the middle of nowhere and it's now the middle of the night. So there's nobody else at this gas station, and the killer gets out to start pumping gas. And Marie looks into the window and she sees that there is a clerk inside of the gas station. So she gives Alex the knife and gives Alex the keys and tells her, this is in case I don't come back. Like, you got to get out of here regardless. So Marie gets out of the truck. She has no shoes on, by the way. So she's barefoot as well at this point. And she like sneaks around the truck and she slowly makes her way inside the gas station. And she's trying to not like bring any attention to herself. And she can hear that he's still pumping gas. But then suddenly she hears that he stops pumping gas and she makes a full on run for it. And she hides behind the door of the gas station. She manages to get inside and she tells the clerk, like she looks at him and she's like, call the police. Like she's trying to tell him to call the police. And then we can see that the killer is starting to come inside, and this causes Marie to run down an aisle. So she hides as the killer comes in, and the killer walks in. He greets the clerk by name. This guy's name is Jimmy. So the killer knows him, and he starts walking through the store as Marie is like running and hiding between these aisles. It's almost like he knows that she's in there or something's going on. And the killer passes this wall or like this aisle that has a bunch of different tools hanging up. Like there's like an axe and like a hammer, which like maybe it's a French thing, but I don't know any fucking gas station that sells that shit, but whatever, what do I know? But as he's walking through, he's talking to the clerk, Jimmy, and he's kind of making jokes with him, but he can pick up that Jimmy is kind of uneasy because obviously Jimmy knows that something is up. And we see Jimmy slowly start to reach under the counter for a gun he has hidden there, but the killer comes to the front desk and like touches his hand, which makes him stop. And he asks Jimmy to get him alcohol out of this case because they lock alcohol in the case here. So he goes over to the case and goes to unlock it, and we see Marie watching this happen from the end of another aisle. And as Jimmy gets this bottle out, he turns to give it to the killer, and the killer just swings an axe into his chest and just fucking kills him right there in the aisle. And Marie watches this absolutely stunned, and she looks up and we see that there's cameras in the corner, like there's security cameras. So the whole thing was captured on camera here. And the killer goes to the front door after killing poor Jimmy, who was just a fucking bystander in the situation, and he changes the sign to closed so that nobody else comes in. And now we see Marie, and obviously she's absolutely terrified, and she sneaks out this other door into this like garage area of the gas station, and the killer turns the lights off, and he now has this bloody axe. So he is armed with an axe. And we see Marie run, and she starts hiding in the bathroom. And she's in this one bathroom, and she goes into the very last stall, and she kind of just sits there and waits. And we see the killer start stalking and lurking, and he walks through, and he wonders out loud, what were you looking at, Jimmy? So he knows that somebody else is in here because he noticed that Jimmy was acting weird and was kind of like looking down the aisles, because we know he was looking at Marie. So he wonders out loud, like, what were you looking at? And Marie hears these footsteps as the killer gets to the bathroom. We see him walk in the bathroom, and he starts looking in the stalls one by one, and he opens each one, and he gets to the last one, and you're like, oh fuck, he's gonna get her. But he opens it and nobody's there. It's empty. And it turns out it's because he's in the women's bathroom and Marie is hiding in the men's bathroom. So he leaves the women's bathroom and he starts going for the men's bathroom where Marie is, and we see that the lights turn on, and suddenly she hears him, but then she doesn't hear him anymore. So she slowly comes out of the bathroom and like checks the stalls and sees that he's not there. So she kind of like splashes her face with some water, and as she's leaning down to do that, you're like, oh fuck, she's going to come up and he's going to be right behind her in the mirror. But like, it's a fake out. That doesn't happen. He's not there. But as she's kind of relaxed about this, suddenly she starts to hear the truck, and the truck starts to drive away. So she runs outside to see this happening, and Marie goes to the front desk and she calls the police and she tells them what's happening. She tells them about the farm and now about the gas station, and the killer has Alex and he's driving away. And the police are like kind of useless, which I can't really blame them because Marie is useless as well. Like, she can't give them any information. She can't give them the name of the gas station, which again, like, I don't blame her. She doesn't know where she is. She's never been here. Like, she's never been to this gas station. She tries to find the name, which it's like, just run outside and look at the name and fucking come back inside. But she doesn't do that. And she actually gets pissed at them when they can't do anything to help her. And she ends up hanging up the phone on them. And she grabs the clerk's gun that was underneath the counter, and she grabs the keys to his car as well. And she sets out and she starts chasing after the truck. Now, we cut to the truck and we see the guy driving, the killer driving, and Alex is still in the back, in the bed of this truck, whatever you want to call it. And in between the driver's area and where Alex is, there's a grate, and he takes that bottle of alcohol and he starts pouring it through this grate on top of Alex. And then he lights a match and he holds it over her, and she looks up and she sees this and she's shaking, she's crying, and then he takes the match and he puts it out. So this motherfucker is just taunting her because he's a sick bitch. Now, eventually we see that Marie catches up with the truck. So she's now like not right on his ass because she doesn't want him to know that she's following him, but she's close enough. She's caught up with him. And we cut to Alex and we see that she still has that knife in the back. So at least she's armed. And the truck takes a turn, and Marie kind of passes this turn, and eventually she goes back and she follows this truck down an old dirt road. And eventually, because she's again like trying to trail far enough behind him so he doesn't know that she is following him, she eventually loses him. And then all of a sudden he turns up behind her. So like, he's got the upper hand. He knew he was being followed, and now he's behind her, and he starts beeping, and she grabs this gun that is sitting on the seat next to her, but she opens it and she sees that the magazine is empty. And we cut to the killer and we see that he has the bullets somehow. It's weird. I don't know how, but he has the bullets, and he drops them out of the window and just laughs. And he starts ramming Marie's car with his truck. And Marie now tries to speed away. And now they're in like a high speed chase in the dark through this fucking dirt road. But eventually he hits her so hard that her car flips over and flips off the road. And we cut to the crash and we see Marie is still alive, and she crawls out of the car and she starts limping, and her arm's all bloody. She tries to wrap it up. But as she's getting out of this car and she's starting to get herself together, suddenly she sees this light flashing, and she looks up and she sees the killer with the flashlight, and he's looking for her. So she runs and hides in between the trees as he looks for her, and she sees this barbed wire fence. And this is actually a brilliant idea and a brilliant weapon, because she pulls the pole that's attached to this fence out of the ground. It's like a wooden pole or post, and she starts wrapping it around the barbed wire. So now she is armed with this wooden post with barbed wire on it. It's kind of a badass fucking weapon if you ask me. But we see that where she is in the woods where they are, there's a bunch of these little greenhouses, and she goes to hide in one, and this man is outside, which we know because we can see his light flashing out there. And eventually this light gets inside the greenhouse, and she starts to walk towards it because now she's armed. So she plans on getting him. So she starts walking towards this light, and then suddenly she sees that the flashlight is hanging on a rope. It's a trap. And before she even has a second to process that, this man is suddenly behind her, and he takes this plastic bag and wraps it around her face. And they struggle for a minute, but eventually Marie falls and she's unconscious, like she's knocked out. And he ends up taking that razor blade out again, and he traces it along her stomach as she's shaking. So she comes to now, and she's shaking and she's struggling to breathe, and he holds the blade to her throat, and he asks her if Alex turns her on. He's like, does she turn you on? Because she turns me on. And now as he has this and he's holding this thing to her throat, seemingly about to slit her throat, Marie feels around in the dirt and she finds a rock, and she manages to pick it up and smash this motherfucker in the head with it. And he starts bleeding like crazy, and he's just absolutely stunned that he has just been attacked like this. Like, oh God, the killer's been slightly attacked. Oh no. So Marie stands up and she hits him in the face, and she starts hitting him with this barbed wire post over and over and over again until he collapses. And when he collapses, she continues to hit him, which is like, yes, get him, kill him. This guy sucks. And Marie ends up looking at him, and she gets really close to his face because at this point it seems like he's dead. Like he stopped moving. And sure enough, like you never get this close to the killer. You fucking know that, because he wakes up and he grabs her by the throat, and he had like that plastic that he used to choke her is now like right over him. So she grabs it and she wraps it around his head, and she starts choking him, and eventually his hands fall to his side and he dies. So she won. She got him. And Marie lets out this like feral scream in victory because she's won. She got him, and she's going to save Alex. So we now cut to the cops, who eventually found out where the call came from. So they traced it, and they trace it to the gas station, and they arrive to this gas station and they find poor Jimmy dead by this axe wound. And now the cops are investigating, and they walk into the back and they watch the security footage, because remember, there was a camera in there, and they watch it and they see that the person who killed the clerk was Marie. This guy was never in there. Nobody else was ever in there. So now we kind of start to understand what's happening, and we cut back to Marie and we see her open the back of the truck, and she gets in and she goes to Alex, who cries and looks absolutely terrified of her, which we understand now is because Marie's the one that's done this whole thing. And Marie is trying to comfort her. She's like, it's okay, I killed him. And she pulls out the keys and she unlocks the chains and the gag that Alex is tied in, and we see that Alex is still holding this butcher knife that she was given, and Marie goes to touch her, and Alex is like, don't touch me, like she's screaming. She's fucking terrified of Marie, and she yells at Marie to get out, and she holds up the knife to Marie, and Marie tries to tell her like, I killed him, it's over, like it's okay, you're safe. And Alex is like, no, they get out of the truck, and she starts following Marie with this knife, and she tells Marie that she's crazy. And we get a flash, and we see that the person who killed the whole family was Marie. So Marie took on the persona of this man. Yes, it's a split personality movie. So Marie has dissociative identity disorder, and she's been the killer the whole fucking time. And we get flashes of her killing the family, and she tells Alex there was nothing I could do to save them, because in her mind she's still like, no, this guy did it, like I couldn't save them, I tried. So Alex ends up slashing Marie with the knife and stabs her in the stomach and runs away, which like I'll never get in movies why like you just do that, like you give them a non-fatal injury and just run away. Like fucking keep stabbing her, bitch. She just killed your whole family. And as she goes to run through the woods, we cut back to Marie, and we see that Marie has once again slipped into the other personality. So she's now her alter ego, which is the killer, the man, and he pulls the knife out of his stomach, we now it's Marie. They're the same person. So the killer, Marie, whatever word you want to use. I will say killer because it's still the man at this point, and it's interchangeable right now. Like they go back and forth. But the man pulls the knife out of his stomach, and he goes into his truck, and he grabs this saw. And this is where we get the cover art of Marie holding this saw. And it's like a chainsaw, but instead of like one of those long saws, it's like a circular saw. I'll put up a picture of it if you guys are watching the video episode. So he grabs this and he starts to chase Alex through the woods, and we get glimpses, like we switch back and forth. So we'll see Marie running after her, and then we'll see the killer, the guy, running after her. And Alex eventually gets to this road, and she jumps in front of the car, which swerves, and she runs up to the car and starts banging on the window, begging for help. And this is Marie's dream from the opening. So how Marie foresaw that this was going to happen, but it was going to be Alex instead of her, who the fuck knows? So eventually this guy that's driving the car lets Marie in. Lets Alex in. So she gets in the back seat, and this guy's all fucking confused, and he is not moving nearly fast enough for my liking. And he does eventually try to drive away, but the car starts stalling. Of course it fucking does. And Alex just watches as the killer gets closer, and we're seeing the killer now as the man. And the killer just gets closer as this guy keeps trying to start his car, and the killer climbs up onto the car from the back like a feral animal, like doesn't even try, just jumps right up. And eventually he gets to the front of the car, and he just shoves the saw through the windshield and kills the driver. And this blood is spraying everywhere. It's spraying all over Alex, who's in the back seat, as she screams. And eventually the killer just shoves the saw through the back seat window, but Alex manages to back up so it doesn't hit her. And this leads him to then go around to the back of the car, and Alex manages to find a crowbar inside, like it's on the floor of the back seat, and she smashes the rest of the windshield open so that she can get out. And when the killer gets to the back and he looks inside, she's not in the car, and he looks and sees that she is outside of the car and she's laying in the road. And we cut to Alex, and this part is so fucking gross because she just escaped through this windshield that was all broken glass, and we see that she is in the road. She's not able to stand up because she has this giant piece of glass sticking out of her fucking Achilles tendon. Achilles shit fucks me up. I do not like this at all. And she pulls it out. It's such a disgusting fucking scene. And she's pulling it out and she's screaming as the killer gets close to her, and Alex tries to drag herself away. And again, the killer that we know as Marie is still in the form of the man. And he goes up to Alex and he says, "You would drive a woman crazy, you little slut." Which, like, this makes sense now why Marie had said to her earlier, like, "No, I'm not a slut like you." Like, I think that was like part of this alter personality coming through. And like, she's just jealous that Alex doesn't want her. That's what this whole thing fucking stems from. And that's why, like, oh, you would drive a woman crazy. Like, she's just existing. Like, just because you're having like a bi panic or like a lesbian panic is not her fucking fault. So the killer is now standing directly over Alex with this saw, and he's like, "You don't love me. You don't love me." And Alex tries to say, like, "Yes, I love you." And the second she says this, the man drops the saw and kneels down and gets in Alex's face. And now, like, the camera pans and we switch. It's now Marie directly in Alex's face, and she leans in and starts kissing Alex on the lips, like, "Oh yeah, I knew you loved me, even though I killed your whole fucking family and just tried to kill you." But she leans in and starts kissing her, and as she is being kissed, Alex takes this crowbar and stabs it right through Marie's chest. And we zoom out as we see Marie kind of like still sitting up, like she's not dead, but at least she has stopped trying to kill Alex. And we start to hear her voice repeating, "I won't let anyone come between us anymore." And this is what we saw in the opening, of course. So we then cut back to that opening scene, and we see that the person that was in this hospital bed in the beginning repeating this was, of course, Marie. And now we see that she's handcuffed. She's rocking back and forth. She's repeating this phrase. She's sitting on this bed. And we see that Alex is watching Marie on this bed from a one-way mirror. And she looks at whoever's next to her and confirms, like, "She can't see me, right?" Which we know, like, it's a one-way mirror, so she's not supposed to see her. But suddenly Marie looks up and she looks directly into the mirror as if she can feel that Alex is there, and she just stretches her arms out for her, and the movie ends. That's it. Like, she knew that she was there somehow, and she's still longing for her and still stretches her arms out for her. What the fuck? So I will say, like I said in the beginning, I used to feel differently about this movie than I do now. Like, the first time I saw this movie, I loved it. I thought it was really great. I loved the plot twist. But honestly, like, after being in the mental health field and like learning about psychology, I have a tough time with movies like this because they just so badly demonize people with dissociative identity disorder. And I think it's, like, honestly such a lazy cop-out for plots sometimes. And I'm saying that as somebody who, like, Psycho is my favorite movie of all time, and they use this too, but I think they use it in a very different way. Like, movies like this and Split do not use it properly whatsoever. Like, it's just so wrongly portrayed. And like, people with dissociative identity disorder, I say this anytime I talk about movies that have to do with this, they are way more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators of crime. In fact, if they have dissociative identity disorder, that stems from very, very deep, intense trauma. So they probably already have been victims of crime. And like, dissociative identity disorder, movies make it seem so scary. In real life, it's like a really sad and beautiful thing because it's literally just your brain trying to protect you from trauma. And it's very upsetting. But this movie uses it as, you know, the villain of the story. The villain has split personalities, and I will say, like, it absolutely was a shock. I wasn't expecting it the first time I saw it, but again, this is another one of those movies that, looking back at it, like, the signs are all there. So even just in the opening, first of all, the opening gives it away because you know that Marie is the one sitting there in this hospital bed, which you can chalk it up to like, oh, she survived this and she was in the hospital, but I won't let anyone come between us anymore. Okay. And then she has that dream where she's like, I was chasing myself. It was me after me. So that's foreshadowing her two different personalities. So the killer is her other personality chasing herself. There's also a lot of plot holes in this movie, and I think that's part of why I don't like it as much as I once used to, because like the more you watch it, the more you realize all the plot holes. Like, where the fuck did Marie get this truck from? How did she get it here? Where did the fucking severed head in the beginning come from? Like, was that real, or was this just imagined and put in for dramatic effect? Has Marie killed other people before? Like, is that where she got all these pictures of these other girls? Or was that also just imagined? Were these people that she was like in love with before? Which that's not necessarily a plot twist. That's just like some unanswered questions, which I don't mind having unanswered questions. So that's fine. But like, again, how the fuck did she get the truck? Like, where did this truck come from? Like, was it taken off of her parents' yard or something? I don't know. But the reason that I had said, if you listen to Wednesday's episode about A Tale of Two Sisters, I'm like, I didn't even realize it when I scheduled these episodes, but it's kind of really appropriate that I scheduled these back to back because in both movies, the characters have dissociative identity disorder. Though in A Tale of Two Sisters, I don't think it's badly portrayed because Sue Me, who is the one with the split personality disorder, is not a killer. Like, she doesn't kill anybody. She doesn't hurt anybody. It's just meant to show like her psychosis after dealing with the loss of her sister and the trauma of losing her sister. So I think that one is done in a much more tasteful way than this movie is. But this was also just the era when we were doing this a lot. Like, this plot idea was being used, like, I feel like pretty frequently. So yeah, guys, that was High Tension. So the takeaway of this movie is do not be scared of people with DID. They are not evil. They are not going to hurt you. In fact, be nice to them because they probably have dealt with a lot of terrible shit. But that is High Tension. That is one of the movies that is considered French extremity, as is Inside, which is the movie that we are going to be covering next Friday. So I hope you guys liked this episode. If you have never seen this movie before, I would like to know if you did see the plot twist coming or not, because again, like after the fact, you see that there are a lot of signs pointing to the fact that this is Marie. So yeah, let me know if you saw it coming, if you had never seen this movie before, or let me know if it caught you off guard, like it caught me off guard the first time I ever saw it, which was a long, long time ago. But thanks for listening to this episode. If you guys haven't yet given me a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to me, it would be super helpful, helps push me out into the algorithm and find other people to find or join our little lovely community we have going on here. So on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Audition, which is a phenomenal Japanese film and often credited as like one of the more disturbing horror movies that people have seen, because there is a part at the end that gets really fucked up. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that movie because it's really great. And then we'll wrap up the month next Friday by talking about Inside. So until next time, you guys know where to find me. It's horror_chronicles on TikTok and Instagram. I post every day, so you can go keep up with me there. And until next time, watch more horror movies and stay spooky, my friends.